The rain fell in silver sheets over the city, washing the glow of the skyline into soft ribbons of light. Somewhere between the thunder and the hum of passing cars, a man stumbled through the narrow street, one hand pressed to his side, blood seeping through his white shirt. His name was Liam Carter, CEO of Carter Dynamics, the kind of man who used to believe control could fix everything. But tonight, control was gone. He had left the gala early, escaping a wall of cameras and whispers about a scandal he hadn't caused. His chest burned, his pulse sharp. When he saw a faint light ahead, a small clinic tucked between a laundry shop and a bookstore, he pushed through the glass door and collapsed against the counter. The bell chimed softly. A woman looked up from her paperwork. Her hair was tied in a loose ponytail, the edges frizzy from the humidity. Her name tag read Dr. Grace Allen. Her voice was calm, grounded. "You're bleeding. Sit down, please." She guided him to the chair, her touch steady but kind. He caught the faint scent of coffee and antiseptic, oddly comforting. "It's not serious," he muttered, trying to sound composed. "I just need a quick bandage." She raised a brow. "You say that like you're used to pretending pain isn't real." He almost smiled. "Occupational habit." Grace didn't push. She simply cleaned the wound, silence stretching between them except for the sound of rain tapping against the window and the rhythmic tick of the wall clock. Her hands were precise, gentle. He watched her, the way she hummed softly as she worked. It felt familiar. When she finished, she handed him a small note with her prescription scrawl. "Change the bandage in 2 days. You're lucky it didn't go deeper." He nodded, reaching for his wallet, but she waved it off. "We take care of people first, payment later." That line made something in him tighten. He folded a small piece of paper instead, sliding it onto the counter. "Thank you, doctor." By the time Grace turned to collect the forms, the man was gone, just the echo of his footsteps fading into the rain. She frowned and looked down. On the paper, in clean handwriting, were 6 words: "Thank you for trusting a stranger." Her fingers lingered over the letters. She didn't know why her chest felt heavy or why those words sounded like déjà vu. Outside, the storm deepened, and somewhere across the city, Liam sat in the back of his car staring at the rain. The image of the young doctor's eyes, the calm way she looked at him, not like a CEO but like a person, kept replaying in his mind. He didn't remember where he'd seen her before, but something about her voice stirred an old memory, one he couldn't quite reach. That night neither of them slept. Grace kept the note beside her desk, folding it carefully as if it were fragile. Liam lay awake in his penthouse, the rain echoing like a heartbeat through the glass walls. 2 lives that had crossed once by chance, bound again by a night they didn't yet remember. If this story moves you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Your support is what keeps this channel alive. Days would pass before they saw each other again, but fate, patient and unrelenting, had already begun to tighten its quiet thread. 3 months later, the rain had turned into summer heat, but Grace still kept that note in her wallet. She didn't talk about it. She wasn't sure why it mattered so much. Maybe because her days at the clinic were filled with noise, crying children, short tempers, unpaid bills, and that one night had felt like peace. She was behind on rent again, and the clinic's owner had mentioned selling to a corporate chain. Still, she stayed. Healing people reminded her that even the smallest act could change a life. Across town, Liam Carter's world was chaos. His company's stock had plummeted after the scandal, and though he was innocent, the press had already decided the story. He was tired of lawyers, investors, and the endless lies that came with power. One night, as he reviewed documents alone in his office, a sharp pain shot through his chest. His vision blurred. His assistant panicked, reaching for the phone. "No hospitals," Liam gasped. "Find a clinic, somewhere quiet." Half an hour later, his car stopped in front of a brick building with a faded sign that read Haven Community Clinic. The air inside was cool, sterile. Grace was finishing paperwork when the door opened. She looked up and froze. The man standing there was pale, breathless, one hand pressed to his chest. "Please," he said, voice raw, "I need a doctor." "You're looking at one," she replied, helping him sit. She placed the stethoscope against his chest and his heart thundered beneath it, uneven, strained. "You're in tachycardia," she said calmly. "Breathe slowly." Their eyes met for the first time and something flickered, a spark of recognition, though neither could name it yet. He studied her face, the steadiness of her voice, the warmth that cut through the panic. Grace frowned. "Have we met before?" Liam hesitated. "Maybe," he said softly, "but your voice feels safe." She blinked, thrown off. "Most patients don't describe doctors that way." He smiled faintly. "Then I'm not most patients." After the exam, she wrote a prescription. "You need rest and follow-up. Stress like this doesn't heal overnight." He nodded, slipping the paper into his pocket but not standing. "Thank you, Dr. Allen." The way he said her name made her chest tighten. She watched him walk to the door, rain still clinging to his coat. When the bell chimed behind him, the clinic felt emptier than before. Outside, Liam leaned against the car, his heart still racing, but not from pain. He knew now. It was her. The woman from years ago, the med student who had dragged him out of a wreck when his car skidded off a bridge one stormy night. He had searched for her for months back then, but she'd vanished into residency. Now, by some miracle, she was here again. As lightning flickered across the skyline, he whispered to himself, "Not this time. I'm not losing her again." The next morning, Grace arrived to open the clinic and found lilies on the counter with a note. "For the doctor who still believes in strangers." She smiled despite herself, unaware that the man who left them was the same one her heart had already known in another lifetime. The lilies stayed on the counter all week, bright against the dull white walls. Grace told herself it was just another grateful, patient gesture, but every time she looked at them, her pulse quickened. Liam came back 3 days later for a follow-up, dressed casually this time. No tailored suit, no guarded tone. "Still alive," he said with a wry grin. She smiled, pretending not to notice the dimple that appeared when he did that. "Any chest pain?" she asked, professional and brisk. "Only when I think about quarterly reports," he said. And she laughed before she could stop herself. It felt good, that brief sound of normalcy. For 30 minutes the clinic didn't feel small or failing, it felt human. As she checked his vitals, she caught a faint scar near his ribs, the same place she'd once stitched years ago. Her hand froze. "How did you get this?" she asked. He looked down, realizing too late what she saw. An accident, long time ago. Their eyes locked, and in that moment recognition broke through like sunlight through storm clouds. "You," she whispered. "You were the man from the bridge." Liam's jaw tightened. "Yes." Her pulse surged. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't want to drag you into my mess. Last time I did, it nearly ruined your life." "You think keeping secrets helps," she snapped, stepping back. "You're still doing it, trying to control everything." He exhaled, weary. "I thought I was protecting you." Grace shook her head, disbelief and hurt mixing. "Protecting me or protecting yourself?" For a long moment, neither spoke. Rain began again outside, soft and steady, as if the world itself held its breath. "Grace," he said finally, voice low. "That night you saved me, I promised myself if I ever found you again, I'd make things right. I meant it." "Then start by being honest," she said, "about everything." He nodded slowly, but before he could answer, a nurse entered with a tablet, her expression pale. "Dr. Allen, the news." She turned the screen toward them. There it was, a headline splashed across every network. "Billionaire CEO caught visiting female doctor in secret." Grainy photos of Liam leaving her clinic in the rain filled the screen. Grace's stomach dropped. Liam's voice was steady, but his eyes were troubled. "I'll fix this." "Don't," she said sharply. "I've seen what happens when people like you try to fix things. It always gets worse." He looked at her, regret clouding his face. "Then tell me how to help." "Leave," she whispered. "Before everything you touch burns me too." He hesitated, then turned toward the door, rain pouring outside once more. Grace stood frozen as the sound of his footsteps faded, her hands trembling over the same counter where his first note still sat. "Thank you for trusting a stranger." Now, trust felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. By morning, the scandal had exploded. Grace's photo was everywhere, blurred images of her outside the clinic, headlines twisting kindness into something else. Mystery woman behind the CEO's secret visits. The phone rang non-stop. Patients canceled appointments. The board called for an investigation. She sat alone in her office, blinds drawn, heart pounding with shame and fury. A knock at the door startled her. She didn't answer. The door creaked open anyway, and Liam stepped inside, unshaven, exhausted, eyes hollow. "You shouldn't be here," she said without looking up. "Reporters are camped outside." "I know," he said quietly, "but I had to tell you this is on me. I've already scheduled a press conference." Her head snapped up. "You're going to make it worse." "No," he said, "I'm going to make it right." He set a folder on her desk. "The Ward Foundation, a health initiative under your direction. You'll run it, Grace. No press, no board control, just freedom." She stared at him, disbelief flickering. "You think throwing money at me will erase this?" "No," he said softly, "but it might remind the world who you are." She rose, shaking. "Who I am? You don't even know who I am anymore." "I do," he said, stepping closer. "You're the woman who saved me when she didn't have to. You're the reason I still believe people can be good." The room fell silent. Outside, cameras flashed through the window like lightning. "You should go," she whispered, "before they destroy both of us." He hesitated, then nodded. "If they're going to destroy anyone, let it be me." An hour later, he faced the crowd outside the clinic, rain drenching his suit. Flashbulbs burst as he raised his voice. "Dr. Grace Allen is not part of any scandal," he said firmly. "She's a doctor who saved my life twice. The shame is mine, not hers." The clip spread within minutes. For the first time in days, public opinion shifted. Comment sections filled with messages. He owned his mistake. She deserves respect. Inside the clinic, Grace watched it unfold on the small TV. Tears blurred her vision. When Liam returned later that night, drenched and trembling, she met him at the doorway. For once, she didn't speak. She simply reached out and handed him a towel. "You're soaked." He smiled faintly. "You always say the obvious when you care." She sighed, looking away. "Don't push it." But she didn't tell him to leave. The days that followed felt like breathing underwater, quiet, heavy, uncertain. Grace kept working at the clinic, but the eyes of the world still lingered. Every patient's smile felt cautious, every handshake rehearsed. Yet each night, donations began to appear. Anonymous envelopes slipped under the door, thank you notes from strangers who believed her. One simply said, "Keep healing. We still trust you." Meanwhile, Liam fought his own battles. His board demanded he step down. His lawyers begged him to disappear until the chaos passed. Instead, he drafted new plans for the foundation, community clinics, mobile care units, free heart screenings, all in her name. When he showed up again one evening, Grace was restocking medicine. "I heard you're expanding," she said without looking up. "I'm trying to do something right," he replied, "starting here." He handed her a document, public records proving the foundation's funding was clean, transparent. "No one can twist this now." She looked at him for a long moment. "You didn't have to." "I did," he said quietly, "because I'm the reason your name keeps coming up, and I'm not walking away this time." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You can't fight everyone, Liam." "Maybe not," he said, "but I can stand beside you while you fight." For the first time, she didn't argue. The sound of rain filled the silence, soft but relentless. "Do you ever get tired of saving people?" he asked suddenly. She laughed, the sound weary but real. "Only the ones who don't listen." He smiled. "Then I'm a lost cause." "Not lost," she said softly, meeting his gaze. "Just finally found." Something shifted in the air between them. No grand confession, just quiet understanding. He looked at the note still pinned on her bulletin board. "Thank you for trusting a stranger." The ink had faded, but the meaning hadn't. "You kept it," he murmured. "I did," she said, "because that night reminded me that kindness still matters, even when people don't. He stepped closer, voice barely above a whisper. Then maybe it's my turn to return it. The lights flickered as thunder rolled outside, but neither of them moved. For the first time, silence felt safe. Two hearts once broken by the same storm had found rhythm again. Spring arrived quietly, bringing sunlight back through the windows of Haven Clinic. The city had started to forget the scandal, replacing it with newer dramas. Grace's name no longer trended online. Patients returned slowly at first, then in steady waves. Some came with flowers, others with folded notes that simply said, "Thank you for staying." The clinic was alive again. On the day the Open Hearts initiative officially launched, the air buzzed with anticipation. Volunteers lined up in blue t-shirts, banners fluttering above the entrance. Grace stood near the podium, clutching her speech, her pulse steady but anxious. She hadn't seen Liam for 2 weeks since his press conference. Part of her feared he had left for good. Then she saw him, standing near the back of the crowd, no cameras this time, just quiet pride in his eyes. Their gazes met for a heartbeat. He nodded once. She exhaled, smiled, and began to speak. "This clinic isn't just a place for treatment," she said, her voice gaining strength. "It's proof that compassion can survive chaos, that healing begins when we see people, not titles, not rumors, just people." Applause rippled through the courtyard. The speech ended, but the moment lingered. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed, Liam approached. "You did great," he said softly. She looked at him, sunlight catching the streaks in his hair. "You're still here." "I said I would be." They walked side by side through the quiet hallway of the clinic. "You're stepping down, aren't you?" she asked suddenly. He smiled faintly. "The board wanted a clean face after the merger mess. I think it's time." "Are you sure? You built that empire." "I built it," he said, "but it cost me everything else. Maybe this time I'm choosing what matters." They stopped at the framed foundation plaque. Her name gleamed in gold beneath his company logo. Grace Allen, Director of Open Hearts. She touched the edge of it lightly. "I didn't ask for any of this." "I know," he said. "That's what makes you the right one to lead it." The afternoon light poured through the windows, casting long shadows that reached across the floor like threads, binding them to the same purpose, to the same quiet redemption. For the first time in months, both of them felt weightless. When he turned to leave, she stopped him. "Liam," she said, voice soft but firm. "Thank you, not for saving my name, for reminding me why I started this." He smiled, the corners of his eyes creasing. "And thank you for reminding me what it means to have one." The hum of the heart monitor from a nearby room echoed faintly, steady, alive, human. Grace looked toward the sound, then back at him. "That's the sound of hope," she said. He nodded. "That's the sound of us." The following weeks passed in a blur of progress and exhaustion. The foundation expanded faster than anyone expected. Media coverage turned positive, articles titled "From Scandal to Salvation," and "The Doctor Who Changed a CEO's Heart." Grace tried not to read them, but even she couldn't ignore how different everything felt. The same city that once doubted her was now rooting for her. Still, whispers lingered. Some people said she had gained everything because of Liam's guilt. Others insisted she was using him to climb higher. She ignored them until the accusations began to echo inside her own staff meetings. The weight of public perception returned, heavy and cold. One night after finishing the last patient, Grace sat alone under the fluorescent lights, staring at the reflection of herself in the clinic window. The rain had begun again, faint but steady. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Liam stood there, holding a file folder, dressed down in a gray sweater instead of his usual suit. "I heard what they're saying," he said gently. She exhaled. "Let them. I'm done defending myself." He stepped inside, placing the folder on her desk. "Then I'll do it for you." Inside were complete transparency reports, every invoice, every dollar accounted for in public record. No one can twist the story now. She looked at him, her chest tightening. You did all this. I promise to stand beside you, he said. I'm not walking away again. The tension in her shoulders softened. You can't fight everyone, Liam. Then we'll just keep showing them better, he said with a small smile. Actions speak louder, remember. Her lips curved faintly. You've been listening. Every word. The air between them warmed, silent but alive. Outside, the rain slowed to a mist glinting beneath the streetlights. Grace whispered, "You can stay until it stops." He nodded, taking a seat across from her. The sound of rain filled the room like a lullaby, two souls finally breathing in rhythm again. A month later, the Open Hands initiative was ready for launch, a fleet of mobile clinics inspired by Grace's original dream. The courtyard outside Haven Clinic buzzed with celebration. Reporters, volunteers, and families filled the space. The morning sun spilled over the banners that read "Healing starts here." Grace stood at the podium, her voice steady though her hands trembled slightly. "When I first imagined this," she began, "I thought about the people who couldn't reach care, those forgotten between statistics. I never imagined it would start with one act of kindness, one rainy night, one stranger." The crowd listened in silence. Liam stood in the front row, his expression soft, proud. She met his eyes briefly before continuing, "Today, this isn't my dream anymore. It belongs to everyone who believes kindness still matters." Applause swelled, echoing across the courtyard. Liam stepped forward, handing her a plaque engraved, "For extraordinary service to community health." As she accepted it, he leaned close, whispering, "Now the world knows what I saw that night." Her throat tightened. "And what did you see?" "Someone brave enough to keep believing." The applause faded into laughter, and the moment turned light again. Hours later, when the crowd thinned and volunteers packed the last boxes, Grace and Liam stood side by side watching the first van roll out. Children waved tiny flags from the windows. "You did it," he said quietly. "We did it," she corrected. He chuckled. "You turned an idea into something real." She looked at him, warmth in her gaze. "You learned to follow." "That might be my greatest miracle," he said, smiling. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in amber and coral. For a moment, everything was still, two people standing at the end of a storm, watching hope drive into the distance. 1 year later, the world looked different. The mobile clinics now traveled across the state, offering free care to thousands. Headlines no longer spoke of scandal but of service. Every article began the same way, with a photo of Dr. Grace Allen beside a van labeled "Free Care for All." That afternoon, the foundation held a small anniversary celebration. Music played softly, children laughed, and volunteers decorated the courtyard with paper flowers. Grace moved through the crowd, greeting people, her heart full. Then she saw him. Liam stood at the edge of the crowd in a light gray suit, no longer the guarded CEO, but a man who had found peace. "You made it," she said, smiling. "I wouldn't miss it," he replied. "It's your day." "It's ours," she corrected gently. They walked together toward a glass display case covered by a white cloth. "Before we close today," Grace announced, "there's something I'd like to show you all." She lifted the cloth, revealing a framed note. The same one from that rainy night. "Thank you for trusting a stranger." Gasps rippled through the audience. Grace's eyes shone. This note started everything. One act of kindness can change a life, sometimes two. Liam stepped beside her, his voice calm. "She saved my life that night, and again when she reminded me what purpose looks like." Applause filled the courtyard. Grace turned to him. "You kept your promise to do something good with your second chance." "And you," he said softly, "kept believing when I couldn't." They reached for the frame together, placing it on the wall beside a small plaque engraved with the words, "The best mistake we ever made." As the crowd cheered, Liam leaned closer. "So, Dr. Allen, do you still believe in fate?" She smiled through tears. "I believe in choices, but sometimes fate gives us the chance to make the right one." The sunlight broke through the clouds, washing the courtyard in gold. And in that glow, surrounded by laughter and hope, two hearts, once lost to the storm, finally found home.